Okay, guys, this is Eli Wilson. We're going to talk about residual income and why it's so so important. So, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, he talks about the difference between someone who spends their life trading, trading time for dollars. So here's a little time, and you're trading that for dollars versus someone who's building residual. And we're going to look at those two. So here's our second guy. His hair is a little bit messed up, but there's our second guy. So this first person, let's say that they're about my age, and we're going to look at, here's a little graph of how much money they're going to make. And let's say they're 30 years old, and right now they make this much, whatever amount that is, it's fine. Let's say they plan to work till they're 55. They're going to retire at 55. We're picking numbers just to make the math easier. So if 55 sounds crazy, just bear with me for a minute. And the average person dies at about 79, 80 years old right now. So that's the plan. So what they want to be able to do, again, we're picking numbers to make it easy, is to make $60,000 more. So this is an increase from whatever this baseline is. It might be 100,000, it might be 20,000. We don't really care at this point. They're going to make that much more because they're going to have a lot of effort, right? And they're going to get promoted and they're going to get raises. If they didn't, they would have that baseline income until they die, or until they retire. So they retire at 55, and that money stops right here. This is a critical difference in residual versus in trading. As soon as you stop working and when you're trading time for dollars, your income stops coming in. So you have to plan ahead and you plan for retirement. We all do that. That's good advice. If you average this box here, kind of turn this triangle into a box, this ends up being half of the 60, so 30,000. But you actually need to split it in half again to save money until you die, because there's 25 years between 30 and 50, and there's 25 years between, or 30 and 55, and 25 between 55 and 80, so it gets split in half again, and the net result is $15,000. That's the increase in the person's standard of living for the last 50 years of their life, if they're on a track, if they're on a path to make $60,000 more per year. Now, let's pick a different color. We'll do Christmas red. Let's look at that same thing and say, what happens if that 60,000 were residual money? So now we're going to talk about this over here, residual money. Same thing. I'm going to draw really the same marks, and we're going to review the difference between those two. So whatever amount of money that person's starting as, they're going to get 60,000 more over 25 years. And the difference with residual money is, forgive my sloppiness of lines here, is that you're building a system that continues to pay you. So this is not time for dollars, this is a system. I like to think of this kind of as, in a diesel truck, they have these things called flywheels. It's a great big heavy wheel. It takes a lot of energy to get it moving, but once it does start moving, it doesn't stop very easily. And it's the same thing here. You're pouring a lot of time and energy into this effort to make money, but once that system is up and running, it continues to pay you out. This might be rental properties. This might be there's a lot of different ways. You could own a McDonald's, for crying out loud. There's lots of good things that you can do to produce residual income. But now let's look at what happens. For this first 25 years, the average is still 30, right? Same as before. But the difference now is the second 25 years, the average is 60. And so when you average those together, you get $45,000. In other words, residual was 3 times as much of an effect, dollar for dollar. Notice that from 30 to 55 over here, this looks the same on both graphs. The only difference is what this person over here was pursuing was building a system versus trading time for dollars. So one more point, and then I'll finish the video because I like short videos. What if you weren't 30? What if this was somebody who was 50? What if they started there? Let's look at the same thing. Let's say they make that same amount of money, and again, it doesn't really matter what that number is, what that 60,000 is. It's just any amount of dollar that you make is going to follow the same pattern. So here, they average 30,000 for 5 years, and that has to get spread across 6 times as much time. 30, it's going from 5 years, it has to last for 30 because it needs to be used for this 5 here and this 25 over here. So that 30,000 gets cut by a sixth. On average, it ends up being $5,000. That's what they do per year from age 50 to age 80, right? This is starting at 50. Now, down here in the residual world, they're going to do that same thing. They're going to start here. They're going to come and make that same 60. That's going to split in half, and it's going to be 30 on average for that first 5 years, but then it's 60 on average for the remaining 25 years. What that total ends up being is, it's slightly higher than that last line, it ends up being $55,000. Because you're averaging, this one's more heavily weighted by that 60,000 that you make for the longer amount of time. And so if you're starting late in your career, here the residual income is 11 times as effective. I know my handwriting's a little funny on this laptop screen, but that's the power of residual income. The older that you are, the more valuable it is. Now, if you're starting late, you may not climb as high. That number may not reach as high, but still, we're talking dollar for dollar here. It doesn't matter if this is 45,000 and this is 15,000, or if this is $45 and that's $15. You're still getting 3 times the impact on your standard of living because you've built a system. Over here, you're only getting, I'm sorry, over here it's the same thing. It's more drastic because it starts late in your career. You're getting 11 times that impact. And that's the power of residual money. So whatever you do in your career, think in terms of this. That's the better way to make sure that what you're doing has lasting power, staying power. And that's the goal. That's what we want to do. Whether you start young, whether you start old, it doesn't really matter. You want to be doing something that generates residual income. Thanks for watching.